4, 3, 2, 1.
CTS podcast.
CTS podcast. We're back.
Cherish the truth seeker, Voltaire.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Biggest political news this week, probably the Senate confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett.
It was the biggest news this week, but it was also the most uneventful hearings this
Nothing
week.
really happened. I think that after the Kavanaugh debacle, the Democrats were like, we can't really do anything to stop this.
Dude, Trump's poll numbers shot up after they messed up they messed up with Kavanaugh.
Yeah, that was
What
a
do you
big
think?
deal.
What do you think about Kavanaugh?
I don't know. The allegations never struck me as super solid, but I just think the way they went about it was so, like, I don't know. It just seemed like they were searching, because even before the allegations came out, it seemed like they were searching for a way to discredit him. And so it just seemed a little too convenient that all of a sudden they pulled this card.
Yeah, let's talk about timeline. So, allegation comes in to Ranking Member Feinstein. She holds on to the allegation for over a week.
Why would you hold on to it? It doesn't make sense.
Get this. They had questionings and hearings in between the time she had the allegation and in between the time she released it. Now, she's the only one with the allegation at this point. She shares it. The allegation and Christine Blasey Ford's name gets leaked to the press against her wishes.
Yeah.
Who leaked that? Who leaked that, Henry? Who leaked that?
There's only a select few people that knew it at that point, so I think we can narrow the field quite a bit. Yeah, and it just, the story is weird. The timing of how everything released is weird, and I think, and also the fact that as soon as Kavanaugh got confirmed, who cares? It disappeared. No one's talked about it since.
I think, well, and just think about, look, they worked to find anyone that could corroborate her story. One person. If one person could have corroborated her story, I would have been like, okay, this guy probably shouldn't serve on the Supreme Court. They could not find one.
And
not one.
They tried. They tried their best to find somebody that could corroborate it. Yeah, that's it. And she barely could corroborate it. Her story was like, well, I don't know when, I'm not really sure where, I think it was this party sometime. So I don't want to rehash all this, but I think it's something that they learned from, that it didn't help them, it didn't shine kindly on them the last time. And so this time.
And look, when the allegations first came out, it seemed legit. I still think it I don't know if it happened or not. I don't know. But that's why we have guilty until proven innocent.
No.
Because
innocent until proven guilty.
I've been on social media too much.
Yeah,
that's so
yeah.
Guilty until okay, that's what the crazy liberals say. I'm not a crazy liberal. Ooh, refocus. Okay. So, innocent until proven guilty. She named one of her closest friends and said that they were at the party, and that friend said they had no knowledge of it.
Yeah, it's just...
That's a tricky situation because it's so long ago, and Kavanaugh did not do great defending himself, though. Like, let's be honest, he came out with his calendar, with his dates. This is what I did this day, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know, it just never really felt... And the Democrats,
they treated it so politically that it became
it never
hard to
felt
believe.
sincere. Like, I could see if you come and you're like, okay, like, this happened, we think this is a serious ethics violation by Kavanaugh and he needs to be reconsidered. Like, we need to reconsider having him on the Supreme Court. Then fine, like, great, do it. But it never felt like that. It always just felt like, man, we just really do not want Trump to get to put a justice on the Supreme Court. Like, we need to run out every trick in the playbook.
Yeah, the Democrats handled the situation wrongly. Like, there was a senator during the confirmation hearing that was talking about how, like, it was probably Lindsey Graham, I can't remember, but he was like, you could have come to us. We could have done an investigation. We could have gotten the FBI in on it early. You could have come to us. And they refused to. Christine Blasey Ford was a victim of that committee hearing as much as Kavanaugh was. They treated Christine Blasey Ford and her allegation so politically and so horribly, and what they did to her was horrible. Horrible. So put that away. That happens. Christine Blasey Ford, Kavanaugh, that happens. Trump's poll numbers skyrocket. I think those are maybe the highest they had ever been was during that Kavanaugh confirmation hearing. Because Republicans love nothing more than a good Supreme Court justice. And then, so that happens with Christine Blasey Ford and Kavanaugh. Amy Coney Barrett gets nominated. She's crystal clean. Like, I don't know if she said one thing in that confirmation hearing where made me go,
Yeah, mom of
and
7
I watched
kids.
almost all of it.
Yeah.
And it was like 10 hours or whatever it was. I think it was like 25
long
hours
time.
worth of film. But I watched a lot of questioning. I think the Democrats handled themselves like senators should, whereas in the Kavanaugh hearing, they handled themselves more like how Congress people, like people in the House of Representatives do.
Well, it looked like a British Parliament, like videos of that. That's what it looked like.
Dude,
and
that's funny. Do you watch those British Parliament videos?
Every once in a while.
Some of those are so funny. Dude.
They're crazy, and I don't know that. Like, could you imagine if the American media, like, if the House of Representatives was like that, what the American media would do?
Dude, some of them are. Some of them in those questionings. They say some crazy stuff. Jim Jordan, the ranking member on like a ton of committees, he says some crazy things. And Jerry Nadler, I don't trust that guy. I don't trust that guy for a second. Let's talk about we're kind of falling all over the place. Okay, we talked about Amy Coney Barrett. I did want to talk about Nancy Pelosi. You saw this video. I saw this video on Wolf Blitzer. Wolf Blitzer annihilates her.
He took it to her.
I saw this quote in the comment section and made me think. I was like, And it said, if you're used to privileged treatment, equal treatment sounds like discrimination, feels like discrimination. And that's what the Democrats get on CNN, dude. They get privileged treatment.
Well, this is off topic a little bit, but it ties in. They traced like 2 of the people asking questions from Biden's town hall that are normal people that are just supposed to be coming to ask questions back to the Democratic Party.
No.
They planted people in the audience to
I didn't
ask
hear about
Biden
this.
softballs.
This should be big news.
I think
news
it
on
should be.
Fox News.
It's probably all over Fox News, but it just, I mean, it whatever, like, do that. I don't care, but it just kind of shows you that they only want softball questions. And they don't want anybody to really criticize them. If you criticize them, you're supporting Trump, which is such a weird like mentality that if you're going to point out my flaws, which constituents should be doing, right? We want to redress those. We want to figure them out. But if you point out my flaws, then all you're doing is helping Trump.
It's a weird thought, huh? It's not like Obama or Mitt Romney. And I guess it's not that time anymore. I don't know if you saw the Obama and Mitt Romney debates, but it's like very civil. Like they're sitting down like me and you. Obama, I think, eviscerated him. I think Mitt Romney's, for the most part, a bad debater. Other than the first debate, he had a good round. I'm just not a fan of Mitt Romney, so
I don't remember him super good. That was so long ago. That's crazy. I
go back and watch the highlights. I don't remember it. I mean, that was 2012, so I'd have been.
Well, it would have been, 2012.
No, wait, yeah, 2012.
So
because you ran against McCain the first go around.
That we were what, like 11?
11, yeah. So I don't actually remember the election, but I remember the highlights, and Obama did good. Anyways, Nancy Pelosi goes on Wolf Blitzer's show, and he's talking about coronavirus stimulus. Donald Trump wants $1.8 trillion. That's a lot of money, and the Fed has already shoved like $3 trillion.
Yeah, they're just
to
printing
stimulus,
money,
printing money.
Mm-hmm.
Trump tweets right before they get interviewed. He's like, coronavirus stimulus, go big or go home. He wants even more money. He tells Steven Mnuchin 1.8 trillion to start. Nancy Pelosi refuses to speak to the president. Wolf Blitzer calls her out on that. She refuses to almost even come to the table, even negotiate without, like, you're going to hold. Wolf Blitzer said it best. He said, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Yeah. It's true. If what you're asking for, Nancy Pelosi, is really that important to you, low-income tax credits, childcare, all of this stuff, do another round of stimulus, but get this money out to the American people, yeah. and do another round of stimulus if you want.
It's exactly what they accused the Republicans of doing when kind of the Republicans in the Senate were a little bit like stonewalling the stimulus bill.
And the Republicans are just as bad.
Yeah. For sure. This was just Nancy Pelosi finally got called out on it. But they were accusing them. They were like, well, there's just these little few things that you disagree with. Like, why not just compromise on them? And then now turn around and it's the exact same thing. And it was funny to see Pelosi get called out on it because it was a foreign experience to her. You could tell that it was not something she was expecting.
And she goes to Wolf Blitzer and she's like, I don't know why you're being an apologist for the Republicans. I'm sorry that fair journalism every once in a while means I'm an apologist to the Republicans. Do you know how brutal they are to Republicans on CNN?
Well, it's a problem when any criticism of your shortcomings is your initial reaction isn't, okay, they're weaknesses that we need to figure out. It's automatically, oh, you must support the other side. You must be like, you're just going to drive people away with an attitude like that.
Yeah, and then she goes, I love how you think you know more about the needs of the American people when we're elected to represent them. Like, Nancy, okay, whatever. You being elected by the American people means they want things to get done. You have done nothing. Wolf Blitzer is not in a position where he can go and talk stimulus bill. Nancy Pelosi, on the other hand, is in a position where she can go talk stimulus bill, and she refuses to even talk to the president.
Well, it's super telling, too, that your response isn't... And so maybe, like, there's criticisms. I don't know a ton about what's included in the stimulus bill, and there could be legitimate criticisms why you disagree with it. But it's super telling when your response to somebody saying, why aren't you getting this done, isn't like, oh, the stimulus bill, like there's these problems, we want to make it better. It's not progressive. It's very, she went and attacked Wolf Blitzer. And I think that tells you a lot about that she's not looking to move forward to not accept this stimulus bill, but make something better. She's looking for just to oppose Trump.
Did you hear that Mitch McConnell says he hasn't been to the White House in weeks because of the lax coronavirus policies there?
Probably. I don't know. They're all crazy. It doesn't make sense.
They don't even wear masks, dude.
I don't get it.
It's kind of weird, huh?
It's so... I've never understood the anti-mask thing.
Masks equals politics for some reason.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is the country's kind of become so divisive politically that every issue that there's any disagreement on, or any issue that one side takes a stand on, automatically the other side has to be like diametrically opposed to it.
Right.
So somehow it came out like Democrats' position was we got to wear masks, and so it's obviously Trump needs to say, hey, I don't know if we need to wear masks. And there's a place for that, maybe. I don't even know if there's a place for that. But it shouldn't be on the like public safety of the American people. That shouldn't be where we kind of throw caution to the wind.
I agree in some sense. I do have concern over, look, if someone doesn't want to wear a mask, I guess the question is, does the United States have a constitutional right to make that person wear a mask?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I've just never understood.
And the Supreme Court so far has been like, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, my problem isn't so much, and I guess we can talk about it as far as legality and constitutionality. Just why not wear a mask though?
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
it's so easy.
I mean, a little bit of discomfort, maybe a tiny bit, but masks work. They severely limit the risk of spreading coronavirus, and especially when the disease can be asymptomatic, you can have no idea that you have it but still be able to spread it. Just throw on a mask. Who cares? And I think in America there's a pretty big culture of, well, if the government tells me to do something,
I'm gonna do the opposite.
I don't want to do it. Yeah. So I think part of the problem is the campaign should have come out initially as not, hey, like, you have to wear masks, and if you don't wear masks, we're gonna come out super hard against you. It should have been more focused on, if you wear a mask, you're being compassionate, you're whatever. And who knows how well that works. Like, it's just speculation. But I don't know we've seen time and time again that if the government says to do something, a large portion of people are going to be like, oh, I really don't want to do that. Yeah. And so knowing that on something as important as getting people to wear masks, I think it warrants a different approach.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that, well, in Utah, it's weird because they don't even have to wear masks in Utah County. Isn't that a weird thought? And it's orange. It's like, there's like yellow,
the COVID
orange,
tracker,
and red.
Yeah.
And they're orange level in Utah County. And they don't even have to wear masks.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see. So schools are back open largely in Utah, and they're finding that, and in school they make you wear a mask. You have to be wearing a mask all the time. And they're finding that in schools that are having increases in COVID cases, it's not because of interaction in schools. It's because of stuff that's happening outside of schools. So, I mean, that serves as an example that you can have pretty large gatherings of people safely.
Right.
If everyone's wearing a mask, you're trying to practice social distancing when you can. You can do that pretty safely. It's when you're not wearing a mask, when you're not socially distancing.
Well, yeah, and think about it. As soon as kids walk out of school, what do? They take their masks off.
Yeah.
And talk to their friends as they're walking home. That's probably where COVID is happening, because I'm assuming, I've never actually.
So the thing is, and I have a family friend that he works with schools, and so have heard a little bit, and just from what school districts around here have been saying, the problem is in elementary schools, which is where you'd expect it, right? Kids don't really have a concept of what a mask does, right? They're finding it in mostly high schools and colleges.
Yeah, I believe that.
Is where the problem is. And it's just, yeah. And so you can do large gatherings pretty safely with masks and as much social distancing as you can. And it's weird that the issue's been so politicized that people will even politicians, right? Not just kind of your regular run-of-the-mill libertarian government can't tell me what to do. Like, real politicians have come out and said, we're not going to require you to wear a mask.
It's weird. I think that masks definitely help. I don't know why we made it so political in the United States. I think of, you ever hear about Sweden's model of tackling
just let
the
people
disease?
die.
Yeah.
Don't do anything.
Essentially, yeah. No one wears a mask in Sweden. Isn't that a weird thought? And they've largely, their numbers spiked for a bit, especially when comparing them to, Europe. But their economy probably didn't take a hit. I'm not advocating for that or criticizing that model, because I think overall masks are important. I think Trump's handling of the coronavirus was probably the biggest mistake of his presidency. Killing Soleimani, big mistake. Do you agree with that?
I don't know.
I want to get your take on that.
I think it's difficult. I think it's a decision that has pros and cons. Like
You're not getting
every
to the
decision.
stance.
I
You
don't.
sound like a politician.
I don't. I don't have enough. I don't know enough about it. To really take a concrete stance. Largely, I'm opposed to getting involved in foreign affairs, militarily.
Do you agree with military bases across the world?
I think if their focus is diplomatic outreach and kind of, I don't like the idea of having the military base as a launching point to invade some country, but if it's there for, because the military can do a lot more than just fight wars. The military can do infrastructure projects, stuff like that, and I'm fine having military bases if that's their primary goal, is to protect the areas around them that they're in by strengthening them. I am more opposed to having military bases in countries to say, oh, we're right next to Russia, we need to be ready to attack Russia or whatever. I don't know. It's a difficult question.
Military bases worry me this is the primary reason. If me and you were to think about China having military bases across the world and investing in the infrastructure of, they don't have military bases across the world, but they're starting to invest in some in like Africa, South America. They have like 2, I think. Maybe only 1 in Africa. They have less than a dozen. Regardless, that thought scares me because most countries see China investing in these countries and giving African countries high interest loans and putting them in severe debt to China. That's a political tool that they can use later on or investing in infrastructure in those countries. It's like, oh, well, you kind of owe us, so let's put a military base there.
Yeah.
That China's model of extending their reach across the world, the United States looks like China to a lot of countries across the world. The United States is China, but we can't view ourselves as China because we're a democratic nation with a strong set of values. We've defended freedom across the world, World War I, World War II, what have you. But a lot of countries, the Middle East, they see the United States as how we see China.
Yeah.
And in military bases across the world in those places, that's like a dangerous prospect, I think.
Yeah, and I agree with you to a certain extent, but I would say we're not as bad as China.
But that's to us. We have this line of thinking. I agree. I completely agree. We are not nearly as bad as China. It has been terrible with human rights, terrible overall. Look at what they're doing to Uyghur Muslims. Anyways, I agree, but most countries see us like how we see China.
Yeah, but I can't. I have a problem with making that comparison just based on frankly, I don't care how a country sees us if I don't know how to put this. Maybe I don't really care how a country, say if we're talking about China, because China sees us in a bad light, that they're like, oh, sure, we need to oppose these guys. Frankly, I don't care how China views us.
Do you care how Iran views us? Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, it depends,
Afghanistan,
right?
Iraq?
And so you have to make that distinction, and I think that I'm comfortable making the distinction that we're better than China. And so military bases for us are not as concerning as military bases for China. And obviously there's an argument there that how they're used, but I don't think that, and obviously, I've said I'm against kind of broad
interventionism.
Yeah, interventionism. But I take issue with comparing us to China in that regard.
I'm not comparing the United States to China. I'll clarify. I'm not comparing the United States to China. I'm more comparing the way we perceive China to how they perceive us. I'm not comparing the United States values to China's values.
Yeah, and so
I'm not comparing the United States military goals, societal goals to China's military goals and societal goals. China wants to build a bigger China. The United States, I don't think, really wants to build a bigger United States. That being said, you look at countries like Iraq, we devastated the Middle East. The United States military devastated the infrastructure of the Middle East.
Yes.
That was the single biggest political, one of the biggest single political mistakes of the 21st century was invading Iraq.
Yeah.
And we have military bases in Iraq.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. Or I agree with that. I think, though, you do have to make that comparison. Like, when you're having the discussion, you have to say, if we look at this, I value the U.S.'s values over China's.
Of
so
course.
I'm more okay with that. And it's a difficult, or not a difficult distinction to us, and I understand that it could be to some other countries, but you have to do it. And I don't think...
You have to do what?
You have to make that distinction.
Of the United States is better than China.
And you can't always... And sometimes, and it has to be an internal kind of decision that informs your politics. You can't, always a group that opposes you is always going to view you as not justified in doing something. So I don't know. It's a difficult decision, and that's why I'm not a politician.
I agree. The group that opposes you is always going to be. They're going to oppose that whatever decision you make. Fine. I think the difference is when you're in someone else's country. That's a big difference because obviously China is not in the United States. And I'm not saying China. China has done terrible things, and what they're doing right now in Africa is horrifying. They are giving small African nations high interest loans to put military bases there. It's crazy stuff that China's doing. But I'm just saying, if I'm going to criticize China doing that, I have to criticize the United States because I don't have to criticize the United States, but I have to try to think in my mind, how would I feel if in the United States, a bigger country than the United States came into the United States, put a military base here, and completely destabilized the societal infrastructure of my nation. That is what they did in Iraq.
Yeah, and I think there's very few people that would disagree that we kind of screwed up the Middle East. I think, though, that you can't really completely diverge the context from and just think about it as a purely... you have to call China and all the baggage that comes with that, and you have to call the U.S. and all the baggage that comes with that and make a judgment there. And personally, I think I'm more okay with the U.S., what the U.S. is doing, than what China is doing.
I think they're both bad. I think the United States strategically can make decisions about military bases in strategic countries for the purpose of defending those countries. What the United States can't do is interfere with another country's politics like they did in Iraq and Libya and destabilize that nation. What we did in Libya, they're selling slaves on the streets of the capital city.
Yeah.
We killed Muammar Gaddafi and destabilized their country. And we think about China being bad. Dude, that's just as bad. What we did in Iraq and what we did in Libya is just as bad as what China is doing and what they have done.
Yeah. Part of the problem is NATO.
I agree. I'm not a fan of NATO.
Yeah, because the NATO agreement is that every country that's a member of NATO is supposed to spend 2% of their GDP on military.
The United States is the only one that does, right?
The only one. If Japan spent 2% of their GDP, they'd be the 5th largest army in the world.
That's a crazy thought. They have a big economy too, right?
Yeah, but...
Their economy is spiraling, though.
Yeah, they're having a problem. But, so, back to the point of maybe the U.S. wouldn't need to have so many military bases if every country in NATO was living up to their...
Or every country in the UN.
Well, yeah, and that's different. But so if we're just talking NATO, if every country in NATO spent 2% of their GDP, I don't think we have a lot of military bases in those countries. But as it stands, I mean, we have a bunch of military bases all over Europe in places. So it's a difficult, and it's not a completely internal problem.
Right.
There's a lot of external factors that could serve as solutions.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't take issue necessarily with the United States establishing military bases in countries that want us there. I more have an issue in countries where maybe we shouldn't be there, they don't want us there. Iran's a great example.
Yeah, and that's a
Cuba.
case-by-case thing that
right,
you really
right.
have
so
to...
I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of a military base for the purpose of defense, though I think I've always been very critical about military spending. I've always been critical about troops that have been deployed across the world when that money could be invested elsewhere. It's part of what China's doing. Say what you want about China, and I'm the biggest critic of China out there. I mean, I'm not going to say every single policy position I have about China, but one thing they're doing right is they have the economic prowess to invest a lot into their military, but instead they're investing into stuff like AI, education, robotics technology, science. I mean, these are very important things that I think the United States should also be investing in. When we have a GDP as big as we do, and our the bulk of our budget, not the bulk, but a big chunk of our budget is being invested into the military, it's certainly concerning. I mean, we spend more than the 5 countries below us combined. Yeah. That's a crazy thought.
What do you think the solution is to combat what China's doing? I have some ideas, but I wanted to hear your opinion first.
See, well, first of all, I think China needs us more than we need them. We need to establish that. What Trump has done with China is one of the few economic policies that I very much agree with Trump on. The tariffs on China, to have them come to the table and negotiate for a better deal for the United States, I'm completely with him. Tariffs long term are unsustainable, and history has proven that. But what we do about China is, I don't want to get involved. I never want to get involved in a war with China. But I think there's something to be said about what China has been doing with Uyghur Muslims. There's something to said about their overexpansion worldwide with their military. And if China ever gets to the point where they pull a Russia and invade like Taiwan, I could see the United States going to war with China. I will not have the Chinese government invade Taiwan. I would advocate for interference and do whatever we need to protect Taiwan. And Canada has already been sending big, huge naval ships to the Taiwanese Sea. I don't know. It's a strait right by Taiwan.
Strait, yeah.
But I don't know what we do with China. I think economic ostracization is certainly something that I don't mind. But like I said, I don't think it's sustainable long term. What do you think?
So here's there was I watched I was pretty similar. My views were pretty similar to yours. And then a few weeks ago, I watched an awesome YouTube video I found by a guy. His channel is Kraut, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I'll link it in the description. But the title of the video was Trump's Biggest Mistake, and it was all about China and Trump's response to China. And the point that I really took away from it, and there's a lot of great stuff in the video, but the economic stuff that Trump has done to China, it largely has benefited China.
How so?
For one, so his big thing, he pulled out of the TPP.
Sure.
Right?
I agree with that.
That was perfect for China, because instead of having all these nations around them that they have trade agreements with, but the U.S. is kind of the big dog in the trade agreement, Now China has the opportunity to go through and renegotiate all those trade agreements with the countries, and they're in the position of power now. And that was like a thought I hadn't had at all before I kind of watched this video. So it gives China more power. And then the tariffs that you had talked about, they seem good. It's, oh yeah, let's come down hard on China. Let's not make them pay. That sounds, make them pay. Not in the
literally
sense, literally not in the sense of the saying, and it's that makes sense. They're doing bad things. We should do that. And there's something to be said for sanctions, but it really what happens is instead of China selling to the U.S., they just sell to all their African countries that they've been developing.
No one buys like the U.S. No one buys like the U.S. Not one other country in the world buys like the U.S.
But if you've developed 20 African countries into consumers exclusively for Chinese products, the hit from the U.S. imposing some tariffs is not as big.
It'll be maybe China's playing the long game, but it'll be hundreds of years.
China's 100% playing the long game.
I agree, but it'll be hundreds of years for those investments to pay off. Hundreds.
I don't know.
Unless Africa goes through an industrialization period unlike any that the world has seen before, I could see it taking hundreds of years.
I mean,
that's smart.
They're turning these countries into consumers of almost exclusively Chinese products. And so maybe their GDPs don't add up to that of the U.S., but the U.S. isn't completely cutting off trade with China. And so I guess getting around to the solution, and this was proposed in that video I was talking about and makes sense to me, is instead of attacking China, let's help strengthen the people that could oppose China in the region. Like India, Malaysia, Thailand, those countries.
Yeah, I could see that.
You're
talking about buying more goods from those countries.
Or, so starting to do that, maybe more favorable trade deals with them instead of just straight coming out against China. We've imposed tariffs on those countries because we imposed tariffs on China, and then China would do a thing where they would pretty much assemble everything in China and then send the clothes or whatever to Malaysia to have the last step done, so that they didn't do those tariffs. So we started imposing tariffs on Malaysia, and instead of making friends in the area of these countries India has a massive population, like a huge population. They could be a world superpower. They could be a world superpower.
I think hundreds of years for India too.
Yeah, but
maybe not hundreds, but certainly decades. Multiple decades.
What if instead of attacking China in a way that largely I think strengthens them in the long run, we help India, we help those Southeast Asian countries in a way that lets them compete with China and kind of helps to break China's stranglehold on the region.
I agree for the most part. The solution, that's an innovative and creative solution. I could see that working. I think I disagree with the tariffs not working because I don't think that's Trump's game. Trump's game is not to attack China. It's to protect American workers, right? American workers were being taken advantage of by the current trade deals in place with China. And I think that's the biggest reason for the tariffs is to renegotiate a trade deal so that those workers are taken care of. In the short term, those workers are hurting. Farmers, there was a crazy story I heard about a bean farmer or a bunch of bean farmers in this specific state that were being driven out of business because China bought this product, this produce product or something from these farmers. So short term, tariffs can hurt. Long term, they're unsustainable. I think Trump's game is more to strengthen the economy of the United States with a better trade deal and less concerned about what China does. I think that's, if I were to go into Trump's mind, I think that's why.
That's true.
And he sort of did the same thing with Russia, right? Trump has mostly stayed away from interfering in Russian politics or taking an opinion on Vladimir Putin. I think he should. I'm not one to. That's such a tricky situation with China and Russia and Trump, because he has no consistency, right? He'll say Xi Jinping did a great job with the coronavirus, and then he'll turn around and call it the China virus and say it was all China's fault. He's so inconsistent that it makes him hard to read. But it seems that he has mostly tried to steer away from constantly criticizing the leaders of other nations and more turned to important matters in the United States, even though I don't think those things have been addressed. Instead of picking a fight with Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping, he's picking a fight with Nancy Pelosi, which doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah, and I guess my proposal is kind of do what China's doing, but altruistic. Like, do China's China's pattern of building infrastructure, helping these countries without strings attached, instead of, so you give these countries a platform where they can succeed, and instead of being tied to China, it's almost like I don't know, that's a bad comparison. I don't know. Yeah. I was gonna make a comparison to the Cold War, where there were kind of the proxy states.
Yeah.
But I would say China's definitely trying to create these proxy states.
Sure.
That are tied to China.
100%.
So what if you combat that with proxy states that aren't proxy states? That
just supporting their economy,
just supporting the country. And I don't know how that works. That's not I don't know all the details of that, but that just seems like the way to combat these China putting these countries in this parasitic relationship, is to strengthen all the countries that aren't working with China, so that less countries want to work with China. China gets weakened. They don't have as strong of a grasp on other countries. But I don't know. It's if it was that easy a solution, it would have been done already. So
sure.
It's definitely difficult. It's definitely something that I don't think will go away in anytime soon. We'll probably be talking about that China and that for the rest of our lives. But I don't know. It seems like China has the right idea but is doing it the wrong way. So to combat
they're in it for China.
To combat that, you do what China's doing, but the right way. No.
And like I said, it's so easy for us to say what's the right way and the wrong way, right? I've always been of the opinion, we need to watch over the people of the United States first. I mean, that's what you do as a country. You take care of your citizens first. And it seems that the United States is in such a place right now where our citizens need so much help, infrastructure, medical care, criminal justice reform, tax reform. All of these things are so important, and they need to be addressed. And we're getting so caught up in how divisive United States politics are that we don't really criticize China's long-term plan for economic domination. What China is doing is so dangerous. It's smart. China could very well be a world superpower in the next 3 decades. Some people don't think that they'll ever be a superpower. I could 100% see China being a world superpower.
Yeah, it's hard to focus on it's hard to focus on things away from home when there's things we need to iron out at home.
Yeah.
And I think we get caught up on the little things instead of addressing kind of fundamental issues that need to be fixed.
Sure.
And so that makes it even harder because you can't iron out the things at home to focus on like bigger issues in the world at large. But when we're at home, when we're focused on, I mean, what the latest thing Trump tweeted, or Nancy Pelosi going to the hairdresser, stuff like that, it makes it difficult to cut to the center of the issue.
Let me ask you what you think about this. What do you think? Do you think that the FISA laws are an infringement on our constitutional rights?
Run me back the FISA laws.
So it's essentially, or the Patriot Act, there's these FISA courts. The Patriot Act gives the government the right to spy on your communications.
Like the Edward Snowden stuff.
Right, all the Edward Snowden stuff. Do you think that's an infringement on constitutional rights?
Yeah, so it's it freaks me out a lot, and it's been, the Edward Snowden thing is a crazy story that I think is should probably be required reading for pretty much everyone, because it shows you that sometimes the government maybe has the right interests at heart but doesn't always do the right thing, and I guess nobody would probably disagree with that, but it just really shines a light on that. So with the FISA laws, it's freaky that they can, I mean, it's essentially spying. If you heard about another country doing what the FISA laws allow the US to do, I mean, it would be as big of the biggest scandal that has ever kind of been hit the US. But because it's the US doing it, and because it's the Patriot Act, it gets turned around so that you're not really, people don't really see it for what it is. And we can talk about, it's been ruled illegal, but and you can talk about the necessity for it, but I think it's gross.
It's weird, huh? Because they disguised it as anti-terrorism.
Well, they called it the Patriot Act, right? Like,
yeah.
That's intentional.
How can you disagree with the Patriot Act? Are you not a patriot,
Yeah,
Henry?
exactly.
You don't agree with the Patriot Act? Yes, you're not a patriot. Let us pass this right after 9/11. You disagree now?
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't think 9/11 contributed to the passing of the Patriot Act, but I guess it did. It did contribute to the passage, but I don't think that's why 9/11 happened. Let me clarify that.
You don't think the Patriot Act would have stopped?
I don't think the government caused 9/11 because they wanted to pass the Patriot Act.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I was confused what you're saying.
I mean, look at what they did to, what's his name? Well, Edward Snowden talks about it a ton. I don't think he was
Julian Assange.
Julian Assange, yeah. I don't think he was Patriot Acted, though, right? He was just, he's WikiLeaks guy.
Yeah.
He got in trouble because he released a bunch of DNC internal docs showing how Hillary Clinton and the head of the DNC rigged the election against Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, it's the Sedition Act. That's what they're charging him under.
Yeah, they're charging him with something even worse.
I mean, treason.
They're charging him with treason.
And that's crazy, especially because that was pretty recent that they came out and said that the stuff that Edward Snowden leaked was legit, was illegal. They said it was illegal. So it feels gross that, and on all of that stuff, so this is bad. We can't tell you why it's bad, but we're going to charge you. It's bad. Sorry, you're going to be in jail for the rest of your life.
He should be pardoned, I think.
I think so too.
Pardon him and Edward Snowden.
Oh yeah, so Julian Assange is a weird one.
He's a crazy guy. Did you hear about? He was in. For context, he was in the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK
for 20 years or something.
Maybe not that long, but a long time.
A long time.
And there are some crazy stories that I'm not going to share because I don't know if they're 100% true. but if you guys want to look it up, there's some crazy stories about what happened in that Ecuadorian embassy.
Well, and Edward Snowden's like off the grid in Russia somewhere.
Yeah.
FaceTiming into Joe Rogan's podcast, but
and writing books.
That's a whole nother thing. Yeah, and I think Julian Assange is a weird one because the Democrats loved him when he leaked the stuff that hurt the Republicans.
Yeah,
they
and then
loved
they turned
him,
him.
and then
they turned against him.
Yeah, I think that I would be interested to see Edward Snowden get pardoned. Julian Assange too, probably.
Trump will never do it because
think?
I don't think so. I think he has associates around him that would never ever let that happen.
I think Trump would do it.
Trump would do it. Yes.
I think but also Trump was like so impulsive. He'd do anything you put him up to. If you said, "Oh, Trump, like you won't do this," he'd do it. He's one of those guys. But yeah, so I think he has associates around him that probably won't let him do it. Well, there's still people on John Bolton called for
war criminal.
Yeah, they all are though. John Bolton called for Edward Snowden to be executed. Said he thought he should be executed. Yeah, so there's people like kind of that old guard that will never let it happen. I think I would, if I was president, I think I probably would. But that's also with a very one-sided knowledge of the whole situation, but that's the problem, is you only get a one-sided knowledge because everything's classified. They can't talk about anything. We have no idea. So we just.
Do you think that information should be made public?
I don't know. That's the problem.
Where do you draw the line? Do you think the Freedom of Information Act there should be a date that you have all access you want to any financial records or government records after 10 years?
Yeah,
20 years maybe.
That's the problem though, is it's on such a, like, I'd have to know what's in the records to know what I thought about it.
If there was proof of aliens, would you release it to the American people?
Yeah,
you
just
would?
a troll. That is so funny.
Why hasn't Trump done that?
Because I think they keep it a secret. Like that.
You don't think Trump really knows?
I think they
the deep state. We're gonna get banned. You know you can't say deep state anymore. That's like a thing now. Saying deep state is like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think so. There's deep state in the sense of like the dark shadow government, whatever. If I was talking about it, and I think you're the same way, more in the sense
lifetime unelected public officials.
Yeah, the bureaucracy.
Yeah,
the bureaucracy. So I think that's something that would stick with the bureaucracy. You can't have you can't have a president.
Trump, where would he go? Where do you think? I don't know though, because he could go to Area 52 and be like, "I am the president." Area 52?
Oh, you just call it Area 52?
Yes, because it's not on Area 51. It's on Area 52. Whatever. This is like the new thing. Did you not watch that Joe Rogan podcast with the guy?
The Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar. It's Area
crazy.
52.
Bob
it's Area
Lazar
52.
Is crazy.
He says it's Area 52. He walks up to Area 52. He's like, I am the president of the United States of America, and if I want to go into this military base, I can. And you think they would be like, no.
They'd show him something fake.
I
think that's above Trump's pay grade. I think the aliens.
Who is above Trump?
Probably, it's the people that are there for life. I mean, like the director of the CIA, people like that unelected are there for decades and decades.
And you think they can steal stuff from presidents? From presidents.
Yeah. Well, who was? I mean. I think, and this is like different, but even like the Supreme Court people are like, I don't care what the president's going to say because you're gone in 4 years. I'm here for the next 3 decades. So it's people like that. Why would you ever like reveal something? And obviously the aliens thing is a joke. Like what?
But Trump has the right to fire those people if he wants. The executive has the right to fire anyone in the executive branch with a snap of the finger.
What if he just doesn't know? Right? It's just a secret. Who knows?
But you know that someone around him knows. Mike Pompeo, that guy knows stuff.
Yeah, probably. I don't think that.
I mean, I guess he was a congressman before, so maybe he doesn't know, but someone does.
Yeah, there's weird stuff with that, and I just think president is at most an 8-year gig. So I think there's probably 8-year secrets that they're more than happy to not tell a president.
I feel like presidents have been asked though before. I think they've been asked on like talk shows, do you know if aliens are real or fake? Do you know if they are real or fake? And I think they've been like, yes. I don't know though, dude.
How could you know? That's an impossible question.
If I was the president, if I ever become president, I would, and someone refuses to show me, because I know they're real. I know they're real, and someone refuses to show me, I'm suing them, and it's going to the Supreme Court. I will take it to the
Supreme Court are the aliens. No, I don't know.
I'm like, I can't answer that, Senator. It's against the judicial philosophy.
Yeah. Now let me go back to Area 52. Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about change the topic, but let's talk about the like Twitter and Jack Dorsey and all that stuff.
Yeah. Twitter news story comes out. Hunter Biden introduced one of his Ukrainian associates to Joe Biden. Documents got released proving that of a text message thread between Hunter Biden and a Ukrainian official. The Ukrainian official says, "Thanks for introducing me to Joe. Like, blah, blah, blah. Here's blah, blah, blah." That story comes out. Twitter says, no, you're not posting that.
Sorry, we're censoring it.
Censored.
Like
a book publisher.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. I mean,
and then Jack Dorsey gets subpoenaed.
Yeah, it's
Lindsey
gonna
Graham
be a
doesn't
big
play,
deal.
dude.
It's gonna be a big deal, and especially, and they backed off, right? Jack Dorsey got subpoenaed, and Twitter backed off and said you can post the story
They did?
now. Yeah, I think.
I
so.
didn't hear about
I'm pretty
this.
sure. But it's so weird that, and it's gonna get spun as this partisan, like, oh, the Republicans just want to bring up this fake like Hunter Biden story, but if you can't see that it's a bigger problem that Twitter is actively censoring legitimate news stories, and with no repercussions, zero repercussions, it's not a partisan issue. It should be, there should be bipartisan support for Section 230 reform.
Well, and the FCC has come out and said, TikTok, we're going to be reviewing Section 230 and your rights very soon.
Yeah.
What's his name? We were just talking about him.
Ajit Pai.
Yeah,
he, so the FCC is, I wonder if it's, if they're actually taking a look at it or if it's just kind of posturing to get them to back off. But I would say that we've talked about since probably the very first episode of the podcast that we think there needs to be Section 230 reform, that it's not okay for Twitter, Facebook, YouTube to act as both
a publisher
and an editor, right? If you're going to be a publisher and not a platform and not be held accountable for what gets put on your platform, you can't do anything about it. You have no right to change what's on the platform,
with the exception of if someone gets doxxed or if someone gets murdered.
So you have there's obviously some things, and I guess that's the argument. Like, what are they allowed to? But this one just doesn't make sense. It's a legitimate news story, and they're censoring it.
There should be an appeal process where if you feel your post has been censored or something like that, you can sue. Or
just Twitter shouldn't censor people.
Right. That's the easiest response. That seems so obvious to me.
I mean, it's kind of black and white. Like, if you are, and maybe what happens is Twitter has to only censors kind of moderate their platform based on their terms of service, and they have to submit that to the government, and the government has to approve that. And so maybe that's the way to you kind of delineate it. If the government decides that you've crossed your terms of service, then you become an editor, that you're going past your terms of service. I don't know. I could see, I mean, Trump's more than happy to come down hard on Twitter. So we'll see what happens if Joe Biden gets elected, this goes away. But if Trump gets reelected, it'll be interesting to see.
Can you imagine if Trump gets reelected?
I don't know, man.
We were talking about the other day if we believe the Supreme Court will overturn a bunch of big cases. So here's what I think. The Supreme Court is going to be hit with some big decisions in the coming years. They're going to reaffirm whether a man can marry a man, a woman can marry a woman, what have you. Gay marriage, I think they'll have to reaffirm that.
I don't think so.
I think they'll reaffirm it. I think they will reaffirm it, but I think they're going to have to. That's my first case. I think they overturn the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. I think they overturn the Affordable Care Act. I don't think they overturn Roe v. Wade. And I don't think they... What was the last one? There's one other case. One other big case they were talking about, but that's what I think. Those three cases. They'll reaffirm gay marriage. They will do away with the ACA. And they won't overturn Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if it was not the Supreme Court, you'd probably be right. But the Supreme Court, and I think they understand that. Obviously, those people are geniuses. Like, we'll never be as smart as any of the people on the Supreme Court. Their job, and I think they know it pretty well, is not to make law. It's to determine the legality of law. And so
well, I mean, that's a very constitutionalist viewpoint, right? To only determine the legality of law.
That's their job.
I know it's their job, but that's still a judicial philosophy.
Yeah, and so for one...
That's a very conservative judicial philosophy.
Yeah, I can see... I just don't think that there's anybody on the court that I can see. Everyone on the court is not a big judicial activist, right? That typically comes from more liberal judges, I think. You're more likely to get a conservative constitution.
But they could overturn those cases because they're not judicial activists.
But I don't think that's judicial. I think they're more likely to say Congress passed this law. I don't know, and I don't know enough about the argument to say which way they'll decide one way or another. I don't think they'll overturn the Affordable Care Act. And
I don't think they would hesitate to overturn the Affordable Care Act. The only reason I don't think they would overturn Roe v. Wade, I think they have the majority to do so if they would please, but I think they know it would cause mass riots and protests. It would be terrible for our country if they overturned Roe v. Wade. And there are a lot of rumors about them overturning gay marriage, and I think that would be... Have you not heard about this?
I think you're reading conspiracy
theories. Two of the Supreme Court justices, Alito and Breyer, have come out. Is Breyer the conservative one? Stephen Breyer? Anyway, two of them have come out and said they believe that decision was made in error.
But...
Do you know how many Supreme Court justices it takes to take up a case? Only 5. No, or maybe 4.
But the... I don't buy that. They just barely ruled in favor of no discrimination in the workforce. I don't think you're gonna go from the conservative justices ruling that you can't discriminate in the workplace to, oh, you know what? Let's just
I agree.
get rid
I'm
of
not
gay
saying,
marriage.
like I said, I don't think they're going to, but I think they're going to reaffirm it.
I don't know how does that come up? Who sues and says, oh, you can't do that?
I don't know.
I don't.
I mean, it applies. I mean, look at the ACA. It's been sued so many different ways, and it still applies to whether the statute is legal or not, or parts of the statute are legal.
Yeah, we'll have to see. That vote's coming up, right? A week after the election is when they vote on the ACA.
Do you think Joe Biden stacks the court?
I think he does. Why would you not answer questions about it if you're not going to do it?
Do you think he has every right to?
I think he has the constitutional right to, but I think it's stupid. I don't think it's smart.
See, I would think that same thing, but if the Republicans want to shove through a nominee, they have every constitutional right to. If Joe Biden wants to stack the court, he has every constitutional right to.
Yeah, I just think it's dumb. I don't like it's not so I agree, right? We agree on that you have the right to, but what? So then the next time the Republicans have the House and the Senate, we make it there's 15 Supreme Court justices.
They need to pass a law that sets a limit for Supreme Court justices.
But who gets to pass the law?
Congress can pass a law.
Yeah, I know Congress can pass the law, but so then so say the Democrats have all three houses, do they go, okay, limits 15, Biden appoints 6 more justices, and we're capped there. Sorry, bummer, that's too bad. Like,
they could.
I think it's dumb though, because then what about when the Republicans control the House?
This is why I'm saying there needs to be a bipartisan law passed that sets a limit on Supreme Court justices, and maybe they raise it. Maybe they say we'll go from 9 to 12. But I don't think the Democrats are willing to take that chance. They've already paid harshly for changing the rules to you can vote in a Supreme Court justice with a simple majority. They have paid the price for that decision.
But I see so many people calling for like term limits on Supreme Court justices, stacking the courts, and it just changing the system because you lost never ends well, because then the next time the other people change the system. How would you ever get bipartisan support for a law that directly benefits one party more than the other?
I don't think.
Based on when you pass it. I mean, 100%. Whoever gets to raise the number of Supreme Court justices has a huge advantage. That's a huge benefit to them. So why would you ever agree to let them do that? It'd have to be something like, I don't know what it would have to be. You'd have to do something. You'd have to get rid of all the Supreme Court justices, and each side gets to appoint like half of the Supreme Court justices. You couldn't just in one setting raise the number of Supreme Court justices so that you get to push 3-5 more on, and make a law that is not going to let the other side do that when they have the chance.
I do think it's stupid if they do stack the court, but I think it's sort of vindication. I mean, the Republican Senate was so two-sided.
But so were the Democrats. The Democrats were exactly as completely as two-sided as the Republicans.
Right, but the Republicans won in the end. And if Joe Biden wins, the Democrats will win.
We can't base it. You can't base it on. And for one, so we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I misquoted the statistic, but it's something like, 90% of the time when there's the House and the Senate, or not the House and the Senate, the presidency and the Senate, and there's a Supreme Court vacancy in an election year, it goes through. I think almost every single time.
Yeah, but it didn't with.
They didn't have the same.
I know.
And it never happens. It's only happened like twice when they don't agree. There's no. It's you could nominate Merrick Garland. So maybe they should have just let him nominate Merrick Garland and not given it to him. Just voted no. But what's the point of having him nominate a Supreme Court justice if you're just gonna say no? I don't. They have no reason to. I mean, the Senate, the Republicans had the majority when Obama was going to nominate Merrick Garland. Why would they ever vote yes?
Because Obama was the president, and the president gets to nominate Supreme Court justices.
And the Senate gets to vote yes or no.
I agree, but there needs to be more bipartisanship there than. And
but
the Democrats
that's the Democrats' fault. That's the Democrats' fault. Though.
Joe Biden, I don't think it would be right for him to do that, and I don't think the Democrats are taking back the Senate. If the Democrats take back the Senate, they'd have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. They would probably stack the court. They would probably pass something, Obamacare reform, like huge things there. I don't know what else they would pass. Environmental protection. I'm sort of going off topic here, but I'm just thinking of...
Yeah, they'd pass a ton of... I mean, their entire agenda, right? If you had control all three branches of government, or not all three branches of government,
the Republicans did a crappy job at it.
Yeah, they didn't do a good job, but...
The only thing they got done was tax reform.
Yeah, I don't... So I just think... I don't buy into the argument of, oh, you should have let Obama's nomination go through. I
do a little bit.
Just because it doesed happen though. There's no precedent for it. It's just because
it's the two-facedness, not a word, of the Republican Senate.
But both parties did the exact same thing, and it's different.
It is. I think it's different now. The Democrats didn't have the Senate, like you said. The Republicans said you can't nominate a Supreme Court justice the same year as an election, and then they turned around and allowed Trump to nominate a Supreme Court justice the same year as an election.
But the Democrats said you can, right? Like the Republicans were arguing with somebody that was taking the opposite position,
and then the Democrats
switched. Just flipped. I mean, they're both just as hypocritical. Just because it's benefiting the Republicans,
and that's what I'm saying.
You can't make that argument.
That's what I'm saying. The Republicans win now. If Joe Biden, what the Republicans doing are constitutional and in their own right. If Joe Biden gets elected, what he will do is constitutional and in his own right. Whether it's good or bad, I'm just saying he has every right to do so, and I think he'd be vindicated if he did.
Yeah, I think there's a difference though between something where there's a vast precedent that if you don't control the Senate and try and nominate a Supreme Court justice in an election year, the nomination's not going to go through. And a vast precedent that if you nominate a Supreme Court justice in an election year and you have the presidency in the Senate, it's going to go through. I mean, that's a given almost. Statistically, it's almost a given based on what's happened. So I don't know why we'd go all of a sudden just because it's Trump say, oh man, like, no, you really shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not agreeing with the Democrats. Trump has every right to nominate and push through a Supreme Court justice. Amy Coney Barrett deserves it.
I think there's a difference though between what Trump's like pushing through it, doing a Supreme Court justice and packing the courts. Just because packing the courts though causes, an arms race in whoever's in control adds as many Supreme Court justices as they can.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying they need to pass a law that limits how many people you can put on the court.
So, but who gets to pass the law?
The Democrats could.
But then what about the Republicans when
if they were to stack the court, they could pass a law that says the max number of Supreme Court justices is 12.
But what about when the Republicans get it back? Because eventually
you can't overturn a law.
It swings the other way. Yes, you can.
No, you need like 2/3 majority in the House and the Senate.
Can. Well, what about you make a new law? You just write a new law. They write a new law and say, okay, you know what? Now we have 25 Supreme Court justices. Effective immediately.
I don't know if it would work like that. I don't know if that's how lawmaking works.
It swings back. It's a pendulum. It swings one way and you're in power. So... you can change whatever you want and to try and stay in power, but when it swings back the other way, you better believe the other side's going to do the exact same thing.
Right, and I'm not agreeing with the Democrats. I'm just saying if they were smart, they would add 3 new Supreme Court justices, make it a court of 12, and then they would pass a law saying the max number of Supreme Court justices allowed on the court is 12. I'm just saying that would be the smart thing if the Democrats could do. If they really feel that pressed about Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation, That's what they could do.
But I don't agree that it's the smart thing to do because it's
politically that's a smart decision.
But then it's the smart thing to do for the Republicans as soon as they control it.
Right, but then they pass a law that says only 12.
How would that ever
pass?
But then you just pass a new law later saying now we have 15.
I don't think that's
What's the difference? Yeah, it is. They can just pass laws.
No,
they
you
just
need
pass
to overturn
the laws.
a law. If you were to say you get 12 Supreme Court justices and then you couldn't just pass another law that says you get 15.
I think you could. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I don't know, whatever. Last thing, we can probably wrap it up after this, but did you see Joe Biden's town hall? An African American man got up and asked him, "What do you have to say?"
Yes, I saw this.
Yeah, to the black community besides "you ain't black," which I think is a great question. It's one of the only kind of incisive questions. And then he said,
because why should we trust you to do things for our community?
Exactly. A great question. And Joe Biden just rambled and didn't really answer the question. And then it was funny. I saw a video and it cuts back to the kid and the kind of moderator, or I don't know, not a moderator because it wasn't a debate, but whoever the interviewer, I guess, said, "Did that answer tell you everything you needed to know?" And you could see the kid go like, "Yeah, it definitely told me everything I needed to know, and it wasn't positive," which that bugs me so much that Biden just gets away with that.
Biden admitted that the crime bill was a mistake, but that it was well-intentioned. No, Joe, it was not well-intentioned. He said it was passed to ensure equal treatment under the law.
I also had super good intentions when I invaded Iraq.
Yeah,
but
Joe,
who cares about intentions? I only care about results.
The crime bill of, was it 1994? 94. That crime bill did. Why should Joe be trusted about these things? His record is abysmal when it comes to race relations. It is so abysmal. Look at Bernie Sanders. Look at Hillary Clinton even. At least their record on race relations was somewhat reasonable. Biden's done nothing for the black communities across the United States. Has he? Am I wrong?
Yeah, and I'm not...
maybe Trump has, maybe Trump hasn't. I don't think... he passed criminal justice reform. It wasn't all inclusive, but it was something.
Yeah,
it was something.
And I don't think but I hate the idea that because of something you can't change, you have to have certain beliefs. Like, that idea bugs me. That like Biden's thing, if you are questioning between me and Donald Trump, you aren't black.
What a
he
terrible
said that.
thing to
He
say.
said that on an interview, and I don't know. So maybe he misspoke a little bit, but some of that sentiment has to be there. There has to be a belief that black people owe Democrats their vote. And why would Democrats ever help African American people if they don't have to work for their vote?
We've bashed a lot on Democrats, so I'll take a shot at Republicans. Republicans and their lack of social investment, financial investment into black communities, their record on their treatment of black communities is just as bad as the Democrats, if not much worse. At least Democrats try and help those communities. Their intentions are there. The end result isn't really there. I don't care about
intentions,
but Republicans don't even try. That's the difference. Republicans' record on race relations is just as bad. Going back all the way to Jim Crow laws, the Republicans have historically done very, very little to help black communities, and they will continue to do very, very little to help black communities. I think Joe Biden will do more for the black community, even though I just said his record on race relations has been abysmal. I still think he would do more for black communities than Trump would.
But there's an assumption that if you're African American, you have to vote Democrat.
I agree. It's that. What was he saying? That's such a terrible thing to say.
And that's not even just Joe Biden. Like, that's a pretty general sentiment. Like, any black conservative gets just abused, absolutely abused online for their beliefs and whatever. Like, I understand if you're like you don't agree with the beliefs, but to call out somebody's, I mean, like, legitimate racial slurs. I've seen racial slurs being used against black conservatives, and I don't like talk about the beliefs. Like, the beliefs can be wrong, but to make the assumption that, oh, like, you're wrong because, and we're gonna call your race into question because of your opinions, is just, it's a weird sentiment to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Should we call
All
it?
right. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Good podcast. I think that was our longest ever.
I think you overestimate how long we go.
Really? How long do you think it was?